Hey, this is Corey from Woodcraft. In today's video, we're going to be talking about knife sharpening tools and some of my favorites. Now, when I started this journey, I had zero confidence, zero knowledge, zero abilities, and I had to start from ground zero. And I have made a lot of mistakes along the way. And so I want to share those mistakes, and hopefully you can avoid the mistakes that I'm sharing with you. And the main thing I want to drive home in this video is that you need to pick a system that you're comfortable with. The skill, technique, confidence will grow in that system, and hopefully by me showing you some things, you can pick a system that's right for you. And then, like I said, just stick with it, keep going until you reach the glory of being able to sharpen your knives yourself. When I started out like a lot of people do, with these little pass-through sharpeners. This is a Smith. It has a little diamond rod sharpener for serrations. The other one that I really like is Outdoor Edge. This one has little feet that flip out, and I like this one better because you can put it on a table and then it keeps it level, it keeps it flat. The Smith, when you're holding it, if you hold it weird, you're going to get a weird edge as you're sharpening. So you kind of want to make sure that it's level. This one helps you keep it level. And the one that I still use sometimes is the EdgeMaker Pro. I'll leave links to all this stuff in the description box down below. But this is the one that I use still to this day. If I have a knife that I really don't care about, or if there's just something I need to quickly touch up, I'll use this to do it. And the pass-through sharpeners are very affordable, they're very inexpensive, and they are easy to use. You simply just pass your knife through them and you will fix your edge. The problem is you have no control over what it's doing. You have no control over the grit. You have no control over the angle. You have no control over anything whatsoever. It just is what it is. If you have a Scandi grind, if you have a Mora companion, and you want to keep the Scandi grind that it came with it, this isn't going to do it. This is going to put a secondary edge on every single knife you pass through it. And so if you have a knife that you want to keep pristine and you want to keep it the way that it came, this isn't going to do it. This is just going to clean up that edge. All of these pass-throughs are going to clean up the edge. You have no control over the grit. You have no control over the angle. You have no control whatsoever. But they are quick, fast, easy to use. And I use these for a long time. Especially this one. And it made my knives sharp enough to do everything I needed to do in the woods. And I have no complaints about it. The issue that I ran into is I wanted to have more control. I wanted to make a true Scandi grind. I wanted to be able to use different grits and have more control over how sharp and how often I needed to sharpen my knives. And so what I did is I made mistake number one. I went out and I bought a very, very cheap sharpening stone. This is a Sayo, I don't know what it is. I think it was like 10 bucks online. It was super cheap. It probably wasn't even 10 bucks. The mistake that I made is I bought a crap stone. This thing is not very good. It's way too soft, way too soft. And it's also 3,000 grit and 8,000 grit. I was under the mindset that lower grit, which is more coarse, takes off a lot more material, meaning I'm going to screw up my knife a lot faster. So I bought high grits that are smoother and not as coarse because it takes off less material, meaning I'm less likely to screw up my knife. But what it actually means is you're less likely to sharpen your knife at all. I rounded my edges. This stone will not sharpen a knife. Even after I learned how to use stones, even after everything, I still can't use this. It's just too soft, and I round the edge off every single time I use this. The last time I didn't even clean it up. It's still gross. I didn't even clean it. I was just angry, and the only reason I didn't throw it away is so that I could make this video. And it's kind of a reminder of how far I've come, how much more knowledge and confidence I have compared to what I used to. So it's more of a souvenir now than an actual tool. But what that thing did is it discouraged me. All right, I was using my pass-through sharpeners and being able to get an edge, a workable edge, and then I switched to a stone and I wasn't able to get the same results, which really it shattered my confidence. It made me feel like there was a skill or a technique that I was missing out on, and I thought to myself that I just can't sharpen with stones. I don't have the technique or skill to accomplish that. And it was the stone's fault, not my fault. And that's the mistake that I hope that a lot of you will avoid in the future. Make sure you do your homework and get a stone that can actually sharpen knives and not one that's soft and brittle or something that just won't get the job done or too high of a grit. There's a lot of things that you should study before buying a stone, and if your stone isn't working for you, it might not mean that you just suck at using a stone. It might be the stone's fault. So keep that in mind as you're on your journey. But I thought I couldn't use stones, and so what I did from there is I bought a Work Sharp. This is a knife and tool sharpener. This is the original one. I know there's a Ken Onion one that has a lot more attachments, a lot more features, and this thing worked really well. There's guides that go on it, so it's kind of like a pass-through, only it's belts instead of rods, right? And so with this, I was able to change the grits. There's fine, medium, and coarse, so I could change the grits. I could get a nice mirror polish. You can kind of modify the grits a little bit. The more you use it, the finer the grit is. And I was able to use this and sharpen my knives really well. But again, I have no control. It was putting a convex edge on every single knife. I was putting a secondary bevel on a lot of my knives. And I have no control. I had to be plugged in all the time. And when I think about sharpening knives, I think about sitting around the fire. I think about sharpening my knives while I'm watching YouTube videos or something. And it should be this nice, relaxing thing. And this thing is loud, and you're only limited to how far the cord goes. And so I wasn't getting the experience that I really wanted. And that's when I decided that I wanted to try stones again. I wanted to be able to not be plugged in. I didn't want to have to rely on electricity to get my knives sharp. I wanted to again have the control and the flexibility of the different kinds of knives. I wanted to make my Scandi grind a Scandi grind and my saber grind a saber grind. I didn't want to be putting secondary edges on everything. I didn't want a convex edge on everything. And so I had very good luck with the Work Sharp knife and tool sharpener, so I invested in the Work Sharp field sharpener. And now the belt sharpener had guides, and so does this thing. This has 20-degree guides. It also has a fine diamond, a coarse diamond, a fine ceramic, and a coarse ceramic. And when I got this thing, I never used the diamond. Again, I was under that mindset where the lower grits, the more coarse, is going to take off more material, meaning I'm going to ruin my knife a lot faster. And I didn't have the confidence or the ability to fix my mistakes. And so I tried to avoid them instead of just learn. And that's another thing that I hope you guys can take out of this. It's easier to learn to make a mistake and learn how to fix it than it is to just avoid making the mistake to begin with. Because you're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. And if you don't know how to fix it, if you avoid that part of the process, when it happens, you're kind of a ship out of water. You're not going to know what to do. You're not going to know how to handle it. So it's important to learn on the course. Even though it is scary, even though it is hard to do, you still have to push yourself into doing it. You're going to screw up, and fixing it is more important than avoiding it. Because, like I said, even now I'll screw up a knife, I'll use a stone that I'm not supposed to use or that doesn't work and my knife is screwed up. And now I have the knowledge and I have the confidence to fix it. So now I'm not scared to try new things. I'm not scared to try different ways of doing things because worst case scenario, I'll just fix it. And so this, I only use the ceramic. And once I got good at using that ceramic, because these are guided too, I got good at using the ceramic and then I started using the diamond. And the issue I ran into is the guides. These are 20-degree guides, and there's 20-degree guides on the ceramic rod as well. And there was a lot of knives where I didn't want it 20 degrees. There were some that I wanted shallower, some I wanted steeper, and so these guides were getting in the way more than they were helping. And that's when I invested in a Falkneven DC4 sharpening stone. Again, these were highly recommended by a lot of people. This one is the original one that I got. But when I got this one, again, I only used the ceramic side. This is 800 grit. This is 1000 grit. The coarse side on my work sharp has never been used. It's never ever been touched. The fine side has, but never the coarse. And the 800 grit on this, I think is the same as this. I think the coarse on this is 800. And so I was scared to use it. I didn't want to wreck my knife. Even with the confidence, even with everything, I still didn't want to run that. You know, you run it across and you can hear the grains pop in and it just sounds horrible. So I only used the 1000 grit side. And I was able to keep my knife sharp. All right, I wasn't sharpening them. I learned how to maintain my edge instead of waiting till it was dull and trying to bring it back. I just kept it sharp. And as I learned the different techniques and the different strategies and the different angles with the DC4, and I was able to maintain my edge. It was always the same sharpness. My confidence grew, my strategy changed, my technique advanced, and then I was confident using this. And so turning it over and using that 800 side saved me a lot of time. I was spending so much time on that 1000 grit side that it was getting more annoying than helpful. And switching it over and using that 800, you can see there's no diamond left on this side. I've used the 800 on this to the point where there's no grit left on it. It's just flat metal. And yeah, this is how I learned. Every knife I own has been sharpened on this. There was a time where I only sharpened using a DC4. I learned how to use it and I just stuck with it and I found it relaxing. I'm able to sit around the fire, hone my edge, can watch YouTube, hone my edge. Everything that I wanted to accomplish when I bought this, if I would have bought this first, I would have been able to figure it out. But because I bought this first, I gave up on the dream, which again is something that I don't want you guys to do. Don't give up on the dream. If you want to learn how to sharpen with stones, modify your stones. Figure out which stone works for you. If you're not comfortable using 800 grit, go to 1000 grit. Do the thing that makes you comfortable and learn the thing you want to learn. I wish I would have never jumped ship so many times. I wish I wouldn't have spent so much time learning all these systems, because the time that I invested learning how to belt sharpen could have been the time I learned how to use this, and I would have enjoyed sharpening a lot more often or a lot sooner in my journey. So pick a system that you think you will enjoy, and then just make sure that you're researching and finding the techniques and strategies that work best for you. Okay? And so this works really well. From there, I got rust erasers. Now I got these years and years ago, and when I bought these, it was all in Japanese. There was no English translation, and so I used them as erasers. I just erased the rust and the gunk and the goo and everything off of my knives. And that was another issue that I ran into. I was oiling my knives and taking care of them all the time. I was so scared of getting rust or patina on my blades, and because I didn't have the confidence that I'd be able to fix it. I didn't have the confidence that I'd be able to clean it up and get it back to working order. I was really scared of ruining my knives. I had a lot of money invested in those knives, and if one of them got a little bit of rust on them, it was ruined. Like in my mind, it was ruined. And so I was spending a lot of time maintaining them. Once I got these, they come in medium and fine. You can buy them separate or together. I always buy them together. Well, this is the original set. They're just rubber, and so I bought another set because I thought these wouldn't last very long. And I've been using these for years, and they still work really well. You can tell they're really beat up, but they still do what they are intended to do. So the coarse cleans everything up. It gets that surface rust off. It cleans all the pitting and everything off of it. And then the fine just polishes it up and makes it looking shiny new again. And so once I was able to maintain my blades, I didn't have to oil them every single day. I didn't have to maintain them every single day. I was confident that if something happened to them, I was able to clean them. And then I was able to use hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer works really well if you have pine sap or something really sticky on your blade. I use hand sanitizer, and I knew that I could use these things because worst case scenario, I just fix it with my rust erasers. And so my confidence grew, my techniques grew, my knowledge grew, all because I picked something and stuck with it, right? And so the rust erasers really saved on that. The other thing I did with the rust erasers is I would use them to kind of hone the edge or polish the edge of my blades. And so I was using it I use them kind of as a strop. The problem is you can see a bunch of nicks and stuff taken out of some of these. Using them to hone my blades, I would cut in sometimes by accident. And I didn't like that, but it was working. It was working really well. And then BattleBox, I used to be signed up for BattleBox a long time ago. They sent me this leather strop. Now this is a loose strop, and I can't use this. I don't know why. Every single time I use this, it rounds off the edge of my blade, and it ends up duller than it was before I used this. And so instead of, again, I had the confidence to adjust. All right. Originally, I would have just been like, I don't have the knowledge or the skills to figure it out, and I would have just thrown it away and moved on to something else. But there's a lot of people that use leather, and so instead of just being discouraged and moving on, I went and I found a block of wood, and then I Gorilla Glued leather on both sides. So this side I use green compound. You can see I use it a ton. This side is just plain leather. And you can see this thing is worn out because this works, okay? The flexible bendy doesn't work for me. My style, my comfort zone doesn't allow me to use that, but this works really well, and this has been able to polish and hone the edges of my blades, and I've been able to get my knives sharper than ever using this leather. And so that's another thing. If something doesn't work, don't just chalk it off as you don't have the skill. Figure out the thing that can help you or aid you, right? I can sharpen with a stone. I should be able to strop with a stone, right? And so that is that. The other thing is these rods. You probably saw these rods. I cannot sharpen my camp knives with rods unless it's a recurve. It's a recurve, you don't really have an option, but these, I use these for my kitchen knives. The kitchen knives are a much different angle, they're a much different kind of steel, and these work really well. I can get my kitchen knives super sharp with these rods. My camp knives doesn't work, right? And so I see a lot of people, they'll go and they'll just grab a junk knife and then they'll try to sharpen it with the stones, and it might be a junk kitchen knife. If I originally grabbed a junk kitchen knife and tried using the stones on it, I would have zero success, okay? But with the rods, I could have figured it out, but then when it came to my camp knives, I wouldn't be able to sharpen the camp knives. And so keep an open mind. That's the next thing that I want to talk about. Keep an open mind. Just because you're super good sharpening your camp knives on a stone doesn't mean that you're better at sharpening camp knives than kitchen knives. It's just they're different angles, they're different steels, there's different styles and techniques used to make these knives. And so be open-minded to trying different ways of sharpening them. The super steels might not be, like the ceramic might not help you sharpen a super steel as much as a cheap stainless gas station knife, right? You have to be open-minded. You have to find the things that work best for you in the situation that you're in. Not all knives are the same. Not all knife steels are the same. Not all sharpening systems are the same. You have to keep an open mind. It's not always you that is the problem. Sometimes it's this is too coarse. It's not coarse enough. There's a lot of things to keep in mind. Don't always blame yourself. Don't always be so hard on yourself. There's a lot of different things that could play a factor, and your skills probably isn't one of them, because honestly, as long as you know that angle, there's not much else you can screw up. Next, the final piece that I got is this Sharpener ceramic stone. Now this is 1,000 grit. And the reason I got 1,000 grit stone is because I use 1,000 grit on my DC4. I stick with what you know. The 1,000 grit works on there, so I brought 1,000 grit here. This works really, really, really well. This blows this thing out of the water. I love using this stone. It really saves a lot of time. This little tiny stone, it works really well. I like using it. It's one of my favorite sharpening stones, but it takes a long time. It's a really small stone. This can do a lot of work a lot faster. And I'm honestly thinking about getting an 800 grit. Again, it would just be like a copy of my DC4, only bigger, so that when I'm working on my BK9 or if I'm working on larger knives, I can do a lot more, a lot faster. It saves me a lot of time. And so, yeah, stick with what you know. Make sure that you keep an open mind so that, you know, just because you sharpen one knife and you're really good at sharpening that one knife doesn't mean that that technique's going to work for all your knives. Another thing is pick a system and just stick with it. You don't want to be jumping ship all the time because you don't want to be that jack of all trade, master of none. Pick a stones, belts, pass-throughs, pick something, stick with it, and master it. And just think of how you want to be, right? A lot of manufacturers use belt sharpeners, and so that's their thing. And if you want to sharpen like they do, learning to sharpen on a belt, you might be the best belt sharpener. It's just not for me. So with that being said, what system do you use? Let me know in that comment section down below, and I cannot wait to see you on my next video.